Let's get after it. There you go.
Welcome to the Gold Medal Excellence Podcast. I'm your host, Alexander Payne, along with my co-host, Chris Asher. And today on the program, we're joined by longtime UC Santa Barbara cross-country and track and field coach, Pete Dolan. Coach Dolan, thanks for coming on the program.
Morning, sure. Glad to be here.
Thanks. What's going on, Pete? It's been a while.
You know, just living the good life here in Santa Barbara, taking it in.
Oh my God. Surfing, sunny weather. That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Pete. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Grew up in San Jose, California. Talk more about your childhood and your early years and when you got into distance running.
Oh, distance running. So I got hooked. My cousin was a runner. He lived out in the valley at Modesto. You heard of the valley there, Chris?
Come on now. Listen, my parents moved to Fresno and I thought it was the worst thing ever when they moved. I'm a bigger fan now, but the Central Valley, you know.
Yeah, so my cousin lived, it's an hour and a half away in Modesto, Almond Ranch, 80 acres. And he got hooked on running in high school, and he was older than me. And so he talked me into running 4 miles one day.
Okay.
I was in junior high. No, I was in 6th grade. I ran 4 miles without stopping. I thought I was king of the world, man. It felt so good to run 4 miles without stopping. And I think that's when I got hooked.
Good. I hear you. The first time I ran 4 miles, I stopped.
Oh, you took some breaks? Yeah.
I had some. I remember one time me and my buddy, we were like, we're gonna run to the beach. I live by LAX in Inglewood, and we started running, and I was like, the beach is far, man.
At least
he kept running, and I stopped, and I figured I'd be a sprint coach at that point.
There you go. You found your strengths right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also did cross country in high school for a little bit, and I really enjoyed it a lot for sure. It's a lot of fun, and distance running definitely takes a lot of mental strength as well to stay focused for a long period of time and having that good cadence and pace for sure.
Yeah.
So you started out at UC San Diego. Talk more about what shaped your decision to start out your college career at UCSD.
Oh, this is back in the old days, when there was no internet. So I thought all college programs were good, like really good. And I had gotten one letter to run for Occidental. So I wasn't that good, but I just figured, hey, I'm going to get to college. I'm going to train all summer and it's going to be good. I got there. I was so disappointed. I was like the number 2 guy on the team. And I go, wait a minute, I want to learn. I want to follow guys. So I immediately wanted to transfer to San Diego State. I was like a hothead. I go, I'm out of here. I'm going to go to San Diego State. That was before they dropped their program on the men's side.
Yeah.
And then I calmed down after a few weeks. I said, just relax, just be part of the program. And I had a really nice coach. He was a throws guy, but he was a good guy. And so I learned a lot. And, you got to, most of the story is you got to be self-sufficient anyway. So I stayed there for 2 years, and then I realized, I really have to get in with a group that's going to train, harder than I do. And that's when I went up to Santa Barbara. UCSB at the time was the best team in the state. They had beat UCLA. I don't know if they'd beat Stanford head to head, but they were really good. And so everybody was running big miles at UC Santa Barbara. A guy I knew from high school was there. This guy, Ernie Reith, he ran for Fremont High School in San Jose. And I talked to him a little bit. So I transferred in there and it was great. Everybody's training 80 to 100-mile weeks. We were just grinding, getting it done. And the surf, I surfed a lot at UC San Diego, because there's really, really good surf there.
Yeah.
And it's only part-time in Santa Barbara because the islands block out a lot of the swell. So I really was able to focus on running when I got to UCSB.
I didn't know that, Pete. So that's I didn't know you went to UC San Diego. How was it back then? They were D3 still. They were.
We were NEIA. We had Westmont, Point Loma. The Westmont they were a pretty good crew. At times, they had fast dudes. All these guys at Point Loma had fast guys. They just didn't have the depth, that some of the teams had.
Okay.
Yeah, I still got smacked around by the fast guys for sure.
1982, you were named All Big West in the 10,000 meters and was named Team Most Valuable Distance Runner in the same year. You also received your bachelor's degree in business economics from UCSB that same year. Then after that, you move on to the United States Sports Academy to get your master's degree in sports science. We had Brock Drazen on the program a while back, who's at Marriott College in Oakland, and he also attended the US Sports Academy to get his master's degree. So talk more about what it was like receiving your master's degree from that institution.
Man, we're going way back. This is good.
Yeah.
Sports Academy. Here was the deal: is I had my foot in the door.
Mhm.
You had talked about getting your foot in the door. I had my foot in the door at UCSB. I was assistant coach, not making much. I was working a part-time job, but I said, "Hey, I love this. I got a business degree. I got to get a sports degree." So that guy was a pioneer. I'm forgetting his name right now. The Rezondich, Dr. Rezondich. He was like a pioneer. Started this thing off. There was no internet, so you're mailing in some of your tests. You had to get a doctor for them. Chris, did you do Sports Academy?
No,
Okay.
it's funny when we have Brock Drazen from Merritt College on earlier. He's athletic director and the track coach. But yet I said to him, I said the two people I knew who went to US Sports Academy was Brock and you. You're the one that told me about it. I ended up going to Azusa Pacific. I got my master's there.
Yeah, at the time there wasn't a lot of choices. Now there's a ton. But the greatest thing was I was kind of like, well, I'm just going to get it down and dirty, 2 summers and then some correspondent courses. But when I got there in the summer, I actually had some really good, professors. This one guy, Leo Miles, he was the athletic director at Howard University.
Okay, great.
NFL ref. And man, he just knew that whole athletic side. And I had never been exposed to it because I was a business guy.
Wow.
So he knew that. The AD at Miami-Dade Junior College. Another guy, he ran a heart rehab clinic. I learned all about how the systems work, aerobically and anaerobically. It was way better than I thought it was going to be. It was intense though, because you only had either 6, 8 weeks there. You just crammed a lot of information in there, but it was definitely a good experience. Way better than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. 1987, you go back to UC Santa Barbara to continue your coaching career. UC Santa Barbara has become a sought-after destination for distance runners looking to train in a highly competitive environment. You also built your roster of balanced teams and a flair for the distances department. So talk more about your early years coaching at UC Santa Barbara.
Oh yeah, the early years.
So I probably don't even know these stories, Pete.
Actually, you were around for some of this. What was
I was around for some, but you were already getting it together before I got there. So
yeah, it was probably when I was in my 30s. It started clicking, but it was rough to start out. I was head men's cross country coach, but all I knew was what I was taught in college, and a lot of there was a lot of coaching problems there, but the team was really good when I was running, so we learned a lot on our own. But first thing I said to myself was, man, I don't know much. I know some, but I don't know much. So I went and researched all the stuff I could, and then of course back then, if you were a distance coach, you found Arthur Lydiard. He was the New Zealand coach with great success. So I tracked him down. He had clinics. I went to a week-long one back in New York and asked if he would do one at UCSB. I had him at the UCSB campus for a week. This is Arthur Lydiard.
Yes.
It was big time back then. But he was on his way out, as kind of what everybody is listening to. Kennedy at Indiana, he had won a
Robert Kennedy, the distance runner, right?
Yeah.
He won like the 10,000 or 5,000.
No, he won the cross country championship as a freshman. Yeah. Yes. Actually, this is good stuff. You know that stuff. Yeah. So, and he did it off of 50 miles a week. So what do you think that did to high school kids when they found out that he was only running 50 miles a week?
They did 50 miles a week.
Yeah, they're like, hey man, why run more than 50 miles a week? Why I just won a championship? So I'm sitting there saying, hey, let's get up to 60, 70, 80 as a freshman. And then if you have a high propensity to handle miles, let's go up even higher. So it was kind of a tough sledding there for a while. So
yeah. People don't know that, so I'll say I remember me and you had that talk. It's Lydiard. He had the book, if I remember. It was called like the Book of Jogging, and it was like the gospel for people. I think you obviously you had him in Santa Barbara, but I think even I saw the Phil Knight or maybe the Nike story or Prefontaine. And they were the same ways. Like this guy, he basically revolutionized running in the world, right, Pete?
Correct. Yeah, Bill Bowerman was in.
Bill Bowerman, yeah, Bill Bowerman is the one I was talking about. Yes.
Yeah, that's the one. So Bowerman was in his documentary in Arthur's. I think Arthur was about 80 when they made a documentary on him, maybe late 70s. And Bowerman was in there before he passed and said, "Hey, I was nothing but a disciple of Arthur Lydiard's. I learned everything," because Bowerman was a
military guy.
Played football. He ran the 400 and played football. He didn't know. So he went and chased down the best guy. So I figured, hey, if it's good enough for Bowerman, it's good enough for me. I'm going to chase down Lydiard too and learn everything. So, yeah, I got to go visit Lydiard in New Zealand. He's revered, man. He's like a national treasure. They got a statue of him in Auckland. So, yeah.
Wow. No, that is, yeah. I remember you talking about that. I remember reading about Bowerman or the Prefontaine. I remember all that, and it was like. Yeah. It was like Arthur Lydiard is just he's the gospel.
It's true. I think he's still relevant today. I still try to balance things against what's going on now and how he would look at it. And I'm still waiting for that big revolution. I don't other than the shoes. You know, we could talk forever about those shoes, but other than
I would say the shoes and the surfaces. I talk to people a lot, and I'm like, they say, why are these tying so much faster? I says, well, technology is better. I'm like, the tracks are faster, the shoes are better. I said, and we'll probably talk about it. I said, and coaching education is better. You got a lot of guys like me and you. We didn't know anything coming up, and now all this information is just online, like how we're doing this. Like we're preaching to we're teaching people right now, even though we're just doing this interview. You got people gonna be like, oh man, let me go look at that. And we didn't have that information back then.
Yeah, so true. That really flipped it. You know, Ken Reeves at Ventura, he put together the whole program. Back in when I started, the high school coaches, it was hit or miss. It was probably 50% were just like, wow, where'd you get that methodology from? And now it's probably, I don't know, 90% is pretty solid. You know, a lot of good stuff out there.
Where was Ken Reeves before Nordhoff? I remember the name. Wasn't he a high school guy?
Yeah, he played soccer. That's why he has an interesting take on all this. He didn't run in college or high school. He played soccer. He coached soccer at UCSB for a little bit.
Okay.
Even he stayed in Goleta. He was at Dos Pueblos High School coaching soccer for a little bit, and then that was it. That's when he started winning state championships.
2005, your women's track and field team wins the conference championship. Talk more about how rewarding that felt.
Yeah, that was God, I just remembered that the other day. That was the first one we'd won, and you know, we didn't have any money, so the scholarship we had, you know, 2 scholarships on the women's side and 2 scholarships on the men's side until 2000, and then we got 4 scholarships on the women's side, about 5, just call it 5. So I had 5 women's scholarships, and we were going up against Utah State, and not everybody had a lot of money back then, but there was still more money than we had. So 5 scholarships was pretty rewarding to spread it all out. You know, we won it on the back of distance runners. We had 2 great throwers, Amy Happanen and Heather Quinn. We called her the Mighty Quinn. Yeah, so we had 2 good throwers and a couple sprinters, but it was spread out pretty thin, except for the distance was thick. So we did a lot of stacking the points on the distance side.
I want to talk about that a little more, Pete, because a lot of this information is for parents and kids, and a lot of it just people want to hear what's going on with you too. But and on the men's track side, there's 12.6 scholarships. On the women, there's 18. So when Pete Dolan says I had 2 or 5, you have to understand so if he has 5 at his best, and another person has 18. Yeah. You know how hard it is to beat someone with 18 when you have 5? It's like almost impossible. You know, it's like when you see in baseball, you see the Tampa Bay Rays, or they always say they have no stadium, they have no budget, but they're beating the Yankees, who have everything. Yeah. You know, not you know. So I want people to know that, like, it is difficult. Like Pete was winning. He was that guy that you say, he's making $1 out of 15 cents.
You're quoting Tupac there, right?
That's
Yeah,
an old one.
bringing that one in. That's
Making $1 out of 15 cents. I'm trying to make $1 out of. Well, Pete, you made $1 out of 15 cents. You know?
I used to quote him. I said, "Hey, this is what we do here." Now, come on, like Santa Barbara. Who doesn't want to go to Santa Barbara? But the biggest problem I had, and it's kind of fun to recount this. People came to Santa Barbara not to train; they came to party.
Yeah,
I had
Isla
to
Vista, Halloween.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of kids go to college to party, but this was even, double that problem. So I had to clean that out, and that was really hard. And so once it kind of got set, that it wasn't a place to party. We're going to try to win here. That took a while. That took years. So
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's still impressive. Like you just you just say you're a business guy. I'm in business school. I mean, you look at the numbers say that's impossible to do. That's what the numbers say. And they always say numbers don't lie. Numbers do sometimes lie, or you can skew them, because you did have things. Now, Santa Barbara is a much more attractive place than some places, but usually numbers win because you can overwhelm them with numbers. So we'll talk more about it now, but I would just say you were just super impressive in that regard.
Well, thanks for saying that. It was group effort. I had good assistant coaches, and we all knew what we were trying to do, and you get these kids in that weren't the first tier recruits, weren't the second tier recruits, but they were third tier. So hey, you get some third tier, maybe you'll get lucky and get a second tier, and they're just so happy to be there. They're gonna work really hard to get that prize. And so we went and got the prize a couple times. So it wasn't hollow words. Some guys are like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna win next year." No, you're not. You're not gonna win next year.
Pete, I heard you said that. No, you're not. Because over the years, I was like, "We're gonna win next year." No, we're not.
Yeah. Well, you had to speak the truth if you wanted to get it done.
Yeah.
So many programs that smoke and mirror stuff. No way.
2012, you were named the U.S. Track and Field CCCA West Region Coach of the Year. You also had a star in Ryan Martin. Talk about what it was like coaching Ryan Martin.
Yeah, that's a great recruiting story. So I had this great assistant coach, Paulo Wagner. He had coached Tetlow Emin, so I had a good 800 guy already. He'd run a 152, and he got down to 146 at UCSB. So we had some things in the work there, and I had a few guys before that too. But Ryan, so Paulo says, "Hey, I got this guy from Santa Margarita High School. You got to see him." I'm like, I don't have much time. Where am I going to see him? He said, "Hey, he's coming to Easter Relays in Santa Barbara." So I get down to Santa Barbara Easter Relays down at Santa Barbara City College.
Yeah. And
I'm sitting there, and Paulo's with me, and "Hey, Paulo, where's this guy?" He's right there. He's in this relay. He's running a 200 in some sprint relay. And I see him go by. I said, "Oh my God, I got it. That guy is the real deal, man. We got to get him." And he was looking at Columbia too. So Columbia had sent him a letter. And I never got guys that were going to go to Ivy or Stanford, never beat out those guys.
Yeah.
But we showed some interest in him, and that guy, if you saw him run, Chris, you would have just gone, "Yeah, real deal." And so I guess people didn't have their eyes on him because at the time, I forget the really good 800 guy that won state.
Was it? Now he came along with Jock. Maybe we'll get there, later. So
yeah, there was.
Are you talking about Granville?
1 year younger.
Was he with Granville? Which we just interviewed.
No, that's before Granville.
Okay, see now I'm getting now.
Before,
okay.
So the sweet spot was he went to UCLA, and I forgot his name.
Mike Terry?
No, he did really well at UCLA. Anyway, he won.
It must have been Strutzel or one of those other.
Could have been.
Or Hauser or one of those guys.
I think Strutzel was just before. Strutzel was like in the 90s. Yeah, Strutzel was.
See,
90s O's. Yeah.
See, this is what happens. You start mixing these classes and years up. No. I remember Tetlow. He was phenomenal for you.
Yeah. Tetlow was good. So anyway, Ryan gets second in state meet. Nobody knows he's going to get second, but it was 152, so nobody was that impressed.
Yeah.
And then I got him, and we trained a little too hard the first year, so I had a stress reaction, and it's hard holding guys back when they're that good.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. But after that, it was just everything started hitting on as they say, on all cylinders. So he was training hard, and he didn't back down from anything. He would train fast, and he would train long. So he was never a cross country guy, but he didn't mind training the big miles. So I think that's what really made him tough. and I think he had a world-class kick. It is too bad he didn't get on that world stage. He did a little bit in Europe, but he could take almost anybody down that last 60, 70.
And Alexander might have more questions this, but I'll tell you what I remember about. Well, there's a couple things I remember. But one, I'll just say this one first. I remember the track and field news cover. I think it was Big West Smoking or something. It was Ryan Martin and Charles Jock on the cover of Track and Field News. And wasn't that at the Big West Championship, Pete, like at Irvine?
Yeah, that was their junior year. They ran 140.
Think about that. That was their junior year.
140. It was, yeah, well.
They ran something crazy. It was like 146 or 145. Like, I mean, I think it was.
Yeah, that was on the cover, 145s.
145 at the conference meet at the Big West meet. And I'm a Big West guy, and Pete's a Big West guy. You didn't expect that. That was crazy.
No, Jock was tough as nails, man. He just took off and said, "Oh yeah, you think you can beat me? Come on, try to beat me." And then Ryan said, "All right, I'll stick on you." And you just got him the last, like, whatever, 5 yards. But Ryan got him. So
yeah.
Just missed the Olympics though. Did you think he had a shot to make it?
Oh yeah. He was that was a really interesting experience going up there, because no, I didn't think going in, no, he totally fizzled at the NCAAs. Jock won it. And I said, Ryan, the whole plan was, hey, let's try to win a national championship. And Jock's here. You know what he's gonna do? He's fearless, just follow Jock. And he didn't follow Jock, so he takes fourth. And I was really irritated. We had words after that race, and just because I had to let him know, like, that wasn't what you should have done. And those were tough times. And then we had the trials coming up, and it was, speaking of Tetlow, this is really fun. So Tetlow, is this okay to tell?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Tetlow's checking in. He's still got Olympic trials, and he wants to make it. He's running 146. Why not? Like, get in the mix. And I see him, and he's kind of down. I say, "Hey, Tetlow, where are you staying?" He's like, "Oh, I got some dump hotel way out of town." I'm like, "Hey, we rented this condo. Come and stay at this condo we rented." And Tetlow's like, "Sure thing." He grabs his stuff, man. He's at our place so fast. He's in law school. The whole time he's studying for law school. And then it was such a great calming influence for him to be there talking to Ryan. And we had to convince Ryan that he was good enough to run with all these guys. And Tetlow was probably, warming up together for the 800, the first round. Tetlow didn't make it out of the first round. But I was worried about Ryan in the first round. And I said, "Hey, this is Eugene, baby. It doesn't get any better than this. You belong." And I saw him look up at the screen, in the last lap with about 300 to go. And then I was pretty sure he was okay at that point. He saw himself. He's like, yeah. And then he cruised in to take the top two. And then that was in the first heat. In the second heat, the semis, I saw him at 300. He looked so confident. I'm like, "Oh, he's fine." Made it in the finals. And then same thing with the finals. I was sitting at the 200. That was my favorite place to watch it.
Yep.
I was sitting at 200, and he went by, and I go, "Oh, he's good," because you could tell just his whole body language and everything. He was great. So the only problem was he let himself go in an inside lane, and he's sitting there because he's always calculating. He's sitting there in third, or he's maybe fourth, and he goes around the curve following this Oregon guy who'd run a fast time that year too. And all of a sudden, who goes blowing by him in the curve, right? What about when Ryan's going to come out? Was help me out.
Was it Cadavis Robinson?
Cadavis, and we called him Cadavius because he went by him, and Ryan was about to pull out then, and so he had to wait till Cadavis went by, and then he got around and just didn't have enough to walk him down.
Well, first of all, it's funny you say a story, so I want to say a couple of things, and Alexander won't know that. So Pete didn't say this, but I was at the Olympic trials that year. It was very rainy. It was in Eugene. I actually didn't have an athlete that year, but I was always on USA Track and Field committees or doing stuff. So USA Track and Field had sent me there, and I was like on a grant program, and I was just kind of shadowing George Williams from St. Augustine's. So I was in a warm-up area. I actually didn't spend any time in the stands. I was in the warm-up area. And and I don't know if you remember this, Pete, but I was by you during the first round when Martin made in the second round. Like it was kind of like the only.
Yeah, I don't remember. I didn't know if he was going to make it out of the first round because
like I remember being by the first round he made it, and I remember being by the second round he made it. Like it was rainy and we were under that tent. Like instead and but I remember being like, man, this guy Ryan Martin is real. Like, man, I always say Pete Dolan's the best coach. He just gets it together.
It's Santa Barbara, yeah.
Oh man, no, forget that. But I remember being there and I'm like, okay, Ryan Martin. And I remember it too, because I started working at UCLA later, and Johnny said, it's funny you said that story, because Johnny said he even told who is Johnny's guy, that Dwayne Solomon.
Dwayne, yeah, Dwayne.
He said, I know this race better than everybody. He said, Kadivas is going to jump in front of everybody with 300 to go. So you better be ready. So it's kind of funny you said with 300 to go, Kadivas was like.
No, Kadivas didn't go till about 200.
Oh, okay. Well, I think
there was a big question mark there. Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember Johnny telling me, like, people were saying, why didn't you have Dwayne get the A standard beforehand? He said, you weren't going to make the Olympic team if you didn't get the A standard. So we weren't worried about chasing no times. He said, we knew we had to get it at the trials. So he said, and I think he said, he told Dwayne, you know, I think that race strategy, and I don't know where you were with Ryan, but he said, Jock is going to take it out like he always does. You know, so sit there, he goes, and Kadivas is going to try to make a big move. And you just got to be ready to go.
Yeah.
2013, both your men's and women's teams finished runner-up at the Big West Championships, although it was still the best individual year under your watch, with the Gauchos winning 10 event titles. Talk more about the 2013 season.
Gosh, I don't even recall what was going on at that time. 2012, we won a men's track championship, and the women just lost. So 2013 was just an extension of all that depth. So those were good years. I had great assistant coaches, though. That's why we were really deep. Josh Priester was he started. He coached Barbara Nawaba, who was
heptathlete.
Heptathlete, yeah, she was great. She won, I don't know, 3 or 4 events in 2012, 3 events, and then 4x1 and a 4x was on those teams. 4x4 also.
That sounds amazing. You won that. I wasn't following it, like that at that point, but you won that many individual events. That's incredible.
Yeah, I don't even remember that one. Thanks for pulling that one up. That sounds good.
One of your champions, Jennifer Carey, went to represent Ireland for the 400 meters in the World Championships. Talk more about what it was like coaching her.
Jen Carey, talk about.
Was she the high knees girl, Pete? The 400 girl that just ran high knees and.
No, this girl, she was out of the Bay Area, so I forget which high school now, but there was a connection there. Katie Voigtlander knew her, said, hey, she's a good girl. She's run, 58 or something.
Yeah.
58, Chris, you know what I'm talking about. So 58, okay.
Whatever. I'll take her.
Yeah, get it down to 56. I could always use a 56.
Yep.
And so she gets here, nothing much going on. And then she gets in with a good group of girls in an apartment. And they start training hard, and then she just starts looking better and better. The most memorable moment, well, she won the 400 at conference championship. That was pretty memorable. Everybody's cheering. But we were at regionals, and down in Texas.
Yes, this is the girl I'm talking about. I think I called her high knees girl because she would run in place and just do like fast high knee. Like I know who you're talking about. She caught everybody. Yeah. I was at UCLA that year. That's why. And I remember being like, watch this Santa Barbara girl. This Santa Barbara. And then people were like, no, she's not going to do anything. I said, yes, she is.
Yeah, you were there. So I think they called her the Flash. The Flash. You got to watch this. And the Blue Flash. Call her something funny. And she split 51.
Yes.
In that relay. Like my jaw was dropping at that one. Come on, 51. That's how she made the Irish team. So somebody saw that video.
So yeah, Chris was also coaching at UCLA at this time, and you were coaching at UC Santa Barbara. And we had former Cal State Fullerton track and field coach John Elders on the program. And Chris had mentioned that when he was talking to Coach Elders, that he was also talking to you as well, that he learned a lot of different elitism while recruiting. I actually wanted to play that brief excerpt just to show, because he mentioned you on the podcast, and that's part of how I got to got interested in having you on the program. So I'm just going to play it real quick.
Yeah, you develop, we'll get moving, but I want to just make a point on that. It's funny you said that because I coached at Fullerton, I coached at UCLA, and recruiting at Fullerton, you have to recruit. You got good kids, we got good kids, but we didn't get that kid like that Georgia would get at UCLA. And I remember just telling Pete Dolan who was the head coach at Santa Barbara. I remember saying, Pete, I was at Fullerton and now that I'm at UCLA, and I'm going to say it, and it hurts me to say it because you're my guy and John's my guy. And I said, now that I'm at UCLA, I know what it's like to be on the other side. And he goes, you can be recruiting a kid for 5 months. And if I call and I recruit him for 5 minutes, I'm going to get the kid. Yeah. And what I meant to say was like, those schools can do that. They can, come on, I want you. And, you got to really develop at your level.
How crushing can that feeling be?
Crushing, man. You got to get up off the floor and keep going.
Yep.
Or I got kids verbally committed.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember one, I'll leave him unnamed. And then, he's all about UCSB. Oh, hey, thanks, coach. Thanks, coach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all in. And then it's over. Sorry, I'm going to UCLA. Oh.
It's crazy because I was there with Pete and I always tell people, they say, what was the best coaching job you ever had? I say Cal State Fullerton. I loved it. I loved the school. I had the grind. It gave me my shot. But I remember recruiting kids for 9 months. You tell me, they play the game with you, Pete. The parent, they're going to play the game. They like the school, but trust me, they're waiting for that offer. And I remember being at UCLA because one day we were at practice and I remember a half-mile coach called and he's like, I got these 151, 150 kids, and if you're at Fullerton or Santa Barbara, you're like, man, I'll take these all day. And I literally remember being at practice and Johnny Gray saying, I can't take those. I got 4 140 sub 150 guys. I can't even take those dudes to walk on. And the coach was like, what? And we were like, he's like, I don't even have a roster spot for him. But what I'm saying is I was on both sides. It was like, when I was on the losing side, I hated it. But I remember being on the winning side, it was like, this is really how it goes. Like these kids and parents are just waiting. And they're telling Pete, man, I'm going to Santa Barbara, I'm going to Santa Barbara, I'm going to Santa Barbara until they get that offer.
Yeah, wanted to, go ahead.
It happened. And the disappointing ones were the ones where it's, you really feel like you're developing a relationship with them already.
Yep.
So you can coach them, and then and with the possibility that a bigger school is going to come when they say, "Oh no, it doesn't matter, coach. I want to go to Santa Barbara," and then they go to the other one. That was the hardest one.
Yeah.
2015, you have another banner year. You finished with a school record low score of 21 points. Your UCSB men's team won the Big West cross country title, and 5 men were in the top 9, including 4 of the top 5. Talk about your 2015 season.
Heartbreak. Oh my gosh. We were good that year. That was the last of the good teams that I coached. They were national caliber, and we approved it. And this one kid, Cheyenne Vaziri, he was a 154 guy when I recruited him. He ran 152 at state and took second. He's an 800 guy, but he didn't have that closing 50 like a lot of the 800 guys I coached. So I moved him up 1500 and cross country. Mm-hmm. Now, as high school coach, are you sure he's a cross country gunner? Yeah. So he was top 10 that year, but we get to, it was at Washington, and it's a muddy day. It's not nice. And Cheyenne was not a mudder. He just, and I rarely give guys breaks, but he was a pretty pure track guy. I think if that day, if it would have been a good surface, he would have been like top 50. And that's all we needed was a top 50. Instead, he was like 80th. And we were one of the first teams not to make it. UCLA went that year as a team. So we just missed going to nationals in cross country. I had 2 individuals go, which is pretty hard to do and not have a team go. So I had 2 individuals to go. But that was the last of the good years. It was Anthony Ortolan and Brian Guijarro. So those are the 2 guys that made it back in. We went back to Louisville. So yeah, last of the great years.
I'm gonna say track and field. Track and field. What you did at Santa Barbara was phenomenal because you had Long Beach, Northridge. You had to compete against those schools, but speaking of cross country, I would tell Forrest Braden, I would preach the gospel. I would say, I've been around a lot of good coaches, and I don't know a coach that's done a better job with less money in developing talent than Pete Dolan. I get it's a UC and you get kids, but like you said, there's levels to this game. You got schools in football that are getting 5-star recruits, Alabama, Georgia, and then you got schools getting 3-star recruits, and they're developing them. And I always was like, Dolan's he's getting 2- and 3-star recruits, and he's top 25 in the country in cross country with no budget, and he's competing for the title and track. And I was just always like, man, I was like, I got to compete against this guy. These guys are tough. So I don't know if enough people gave you the accolades or how good you were, but I always just extremely respected you.
Hey, thanks for saying that. It was, everything went into the mix. And this once, you reminded me of like Brian Guijaro. That guy as a freshman, he didn't speak much, but he was my team leader. Once you could identify that team leader, then he kept everything in line. And so even back in the great year with 2006, when the women's team were 9th in the country, I had Stephanie Rothstein, now Stephanie Bruce. She's still running at a high level. She's in her late 30s now. So once you identify that top dog, or whatever you want to call it, then everybody falls in place, and the recruiting's easier, and everybody knows the identity of that team because it falls on that team leader. So I had it.
But that was hard to do. The Big West was a very underrated distance cross country conference. You had Irv Ray at Riverside, you had Vento Boyle, you had Cal Poly Slow down the street from you. Those are nationally ranked coaches, programs, or they had at least individual athletes. But you were consistently up there. If you weren't winning, you were top 3.
Yeah, we had some good runs. It was Cal Poly, Mark Conover up there.
Mark Conover.
His men's team, they were just tough, man. That was his. They would just grind, and I don't know if I could get my guys to grind like that. I want them to watch those guys race because they were tough dudes, Cal Poly.
Yeah, I think one year. What was the year where it was a 1,500 a mile, but the Big West Championship, all these guys were like the fastest in the country. I think it was at Northridge, and it was like you and Conover.
At Northridge, yeah, that was a good year. I this one year I had this guy come out of the water, aqua jogging. He had like 4
I remember that guy. He won.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah, I had that picture of him champion over my door at my office for ever since then, because it told me that anything was possible with that guy to win. But that was we had 340. This is before the shoes,
Yeah.
340. It was like 343 to 346.
Yeah.
Top 6 guys. Like that's a crew. That's pretty respectable.
Yeah,
you also had a few other standouts. Bryce Rosa won the 3,000 meter steeplechase, and then Danny Marino captured her first conference title in the 10,000 meters. And then Tori Tasolis lowered her 1,500 best to 421.95. So you had a total of 16 different UCSB runners score in the distance events that year. Talk more about the different other standouts you had on that team.
Those are a lot of stories right there. Tori Solis, she was gonna quit. She was injured, and she was just running for fun, kind of. And then she wanted to come back out on the team, and I said, hey, this is real deal. Like, you got to impress me. I'll give you a 2-mile time trial, but you got to impress me. What do you think would impress me? And Danny Marino coached her up and said, you better say something fast, like 10:40 or 10:50 or something, because you're not going to watch you on the team if you're going to say 11:20. So she goes, oh, I'll break 11. I go, all right, let's do it. So all by herself, she breaks 11, makes it back on the team. And it was an incredible story, because she goes all the way up to she didn't make nationals, but she made the regional marks, and she ran for a few years after college too. So big. Danny Marino, she was one of the toughest, athletes I ever had. Her mind just worked differently. She was she bombed at the regional 10,000 in Texas the year before, and so the next year she was prepared. she had every split written down her arm and something about each lap that was going to keep her focused. And it was like, that was incredible. Now she didn't make it, but she was where they took 12, right? So she was 13th or 14th that year. But I was so proud of her because she just worked on her weaknesses and just made it happen. So she's still running. She's a mountain runner now. I think she might be 30 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spent over 30 years coaching at UC Santa Barbara. Any more thoughts on just highs and lows of coaching?
Whoa, Chris, you know some highs and lows of
Oh
coaching.
gosh. I tell people sometimes you go from the outhouse to the penthouse or the penthouse to the outhouse, whichever way you want to call it.
Yeah, it was a rough ending for my career out there, but in the end, this college running scene, it's what we got. It's the best thing. I always wanted to try to improve it. Coach Elders at Fullerton, he always wanted to try to improve it with more team scoring and getting kids more involved as a team. But it's still the best thing we got. And my retirement's getting paid by the school that I work for, so I got a pension. So I'm still grateful for being able to do what I love for all those years. So
no, Pete, I'm glad we got to have you on here. Like I said, I always thought you were extremely underrated. Me and Pete used to have long conversations. Talk about the highs and lows. I mean, I remember doing a track meet at Fullerton and then going to the Olive Garden to coach.
I was going to tell that story.
Tell people I would wait tables, and then here's Pete's team at the Olive Garden. I'm waiting their table.
Yeah, Chris,
it was rough. You talk about the highs and the lows. Yeah, I had lows.
Yeah,
but it made me stronger.
Yeah, we talked about that. Like I didn't know Chris that well because what were you, 23 or 4?
Oh man, I had started from Northridge, and people don't know how I got started was I was helping Coach Stram out in Northridge, and I really was announcing track meets. So kind of people knew me from announcing. I think Pete heard Stram would have me announce all the Northridge meets, and I announced, Cal Nevada or whatever. And
Challenge Cup.
But he was like, hey, John Elders is looking for an assistant, and it's not going to pay you anything. But he said, guess what? You don't make anything anyway. So this will get you in the door. And that's how I took it. He's like, get in the door. He said, that's a nothing program. And if you do anything there, people will hire you because they don't expect anything from that program. And I was kind of offended by that. I was like, I'm not going to go and do, I was like, I want to go win. But that's how I started, and it's just, and at the same time, you guys were, like you said, you had no budget like us at Fullerton. I mean, we had no budgets and we just grinded.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, that Olive Garden story, like I said, we're working all day, and, we got to get home and we stop at Olive Garden. And I see this assistant coach working right after he worked all day. And I go, this guy's going to go far, man. He doesn't care. He's working. That was a great story.
No, I appreciate it. It was hard, but I just for me, I'm talking about, I just figured if I was going to make it, I had to outgrind everybody. You're talking about, that was me. I was like, if I just outgrind everyone, we're going to be successful. So I'm just going to recruit, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, and it worked out well. And we at Fullerton, at least while I was there, we got pretty good.
Oh yeah, you did. Mm-hmm. Those mile relays, that's where you started putting the name on the program. Those mile relays got pretty good, pretty heated. Maybe not, we weren't breaking 3:10s, but it was getting down there.
I went to Hawthorne High School, which won 7 state titles in a row, and they still have the national record in 4x4 30740. And when you came, and even with Stramage, when you came from programs like that, for some reason the emphasis was like, what you do is don't lose a 4x4. You build your program around a 4x4. So my whole philosophy was, I'm gonna have a good 4x4, and if I have a good 4x4, I'm probably gonna have a good 4x1, and I'm gonna have a good group of 400, 800, 100, 200, 400 hurdlers. I'm gonna have a good nucleus if I can cover this event. And then when you start winning, it's kind of contagious. Yeah. People want to start coming. They'll come for free. I tell people that you start winning, people will start coming. You can tell a kid, I don't have any scholarship. Well, I want to go because so-and-so goes there. You guys are running fast.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, Pete,
Hold on,
Dolan,
Pete.
it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed hearing your story, and it was great meeting you on this podcast. I really appreciate you sharing a lot of different stories about Santa Barbara, and definitely you showed to the audience out there that Santa Barbara is more than just partying for sure. There's a lot of great distance runners out there that can really get a lot of mileage and cadence and pace in their meets, and really they do a lot of damage in the Big West Conference Championships. So, Pete Dolan, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Pete, any last thoughts? Anything you want to say to the people out there? You've been low key, you've been ghost. It's hard for me to find. So I'm sure you got some former athletes that are gonna like this video. You know, we're doing. But anything you want to say to people out there?
Well, I did volunteer out at Dos Pueblos High School this year, and
All right.
it's a different scene out there, high school. But I just, it's the same story. It's what we kind of ended it on. Just outgrind, and then you're gonna, if you can foster that ability to grind, then you're gonna be successful. It's gonna.
I used to call Pete, this was our inside joke, the best coach in Santa Barbara County. But this guy right here is one of the best coaches in the United States. His record and resume proves so. So thank you, Pete. Appreciate you coming on here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for wanting to talk about all this stuff.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.